Good morning, everyone. Microphone check, screen check. Looks like everything is working correctly here. Good, good. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hopefully everyone is able to rest up, get ready for the day ahead and all that fun stuff. Hopefully you didn't fall asleep yesterday. What a snooze fest these last... it's like the volume just dries up and just completely goes away, but... Anyway, before we jump on the left side of the screen there, make sure to read through the Live Trader Morning Prep PDF. Very important to go through and understand everything that is inside there. Just a quick note for you all before we jump on the YouTube broadcast side of things. It does have between a 5 and 30-second delay, depending on where you're logging in from, which will definitely impact the timeliness of what I may be talking about at the time. Just want to take a second to give a shout out to our latest members that joined overnight, yesterday afternoon, etc. Thank you so much for the support. I'm pumped to have you on the SSFTG family. If you aren't a member yet, you have a few different options to check out if you're looking to further your trading education and career, or if you're just looking for a cool place to hang out with like-minded people. Here on YouTube, you can check out the join button below the stream. The YouTube family gains access to the extended hours stream, which continues the morning room from 10 onward until we end the in the morning, whenever the volume dies up. After usually around 10:30 to 11 o'clock. Every member also gains permanent access to the Discord chat server, and of course, you get the awesome badge next to your name here on YouTube to show your support. To understand what it is that we are doing every day in the room, look no further than the Day Trading Academy. This is no lightweight PDF that you're going to breeze through in an afternoon. You're looking at 19 plus hours of course material, study material, homework, review, all kinds of stuff. So you better tuck in. There's a lot there to go through and digest. And then, of course, finally, the big kahuna, VIPs. VIPs have exclusive permanent access to the non-delayed stream, covering the entire morning session from 9 until we close up. And that way you can ensure that you're on the fastest connection possible and that you don't miss any fun stuff along the way. Alongside that, VIPs also have access to the monthly webinars, which there's one coming up, I believe, next weekend. Different private events, one-on-one scheduling access, all kinds of cool stuff. So whether you're here for the very first time or you're a seasoned VIP veteran over on the Zoom stream, I welcome you. I'm glad to have you here today, trading alongside with me and analyzing these crazy markets of ours. Let's take a look at some charts, take a look at some news, see what's going on today, see what's going on across the board here so we can kind of better prepare ourselves for what to expect or what not to expect. Don't forget to grab your morning DP levels. Those are posted for you this morning so that you have all of those ready on the major 7 markets that we trade. Taking a look at the news for today, on the news calendar, medium and large news announcements, we do have a few that tick off at 8:30 earlier this morning with building permits, as well as, not that far yet, as well as just a small batch of a bunch of medium news announcements. The big one, again, building permits for May. Going into today is Wednesday. That means that we've got crude oil inventories. Crude oil inventories, the forecast is negative 3.29 million. And then, we'll get into the API report and all that fun stuff in a second. But as if we needed to make this week any weirder, not only is it Wednesday, not only is it quadruple witching week, it's FOMC day today too. It's like, how many things can we have stacked against the odds, you know? There's just, man, there's a lot of stuff that we're going to have to be contending with all this crap here, but anyway, let's looking at the inventories for today. The crude oil inventories are the next news announcement that's up. Again, forecast for that's negative 3.29 million. If you look at yesterday, the API report, that gives us a heads up as to what to expect. That came out at a negative 8.5, way, way farther than the anticipation. So looking like a fairly bullish number that's going to be coming out. And if we look at today, it's expected to be bullish already. There are a few caveats to that bullishness. If we're looking at the bullish news on crude oil, well, crude oil hasn't stopped going up. It's incredibly bullish. This thing is just pinned to the ceiling and it won't come down. So with this amount of bullishness, it's really hard to want to be a buyer at the top. And you'll notice where the market is not at the moment. It is not at the top. It's finally pulling back. And it looks like we actually have a shot at a possible two-legged correction back to previous, well, we know now, given hindsight, that was a pullback, the previous pullback structure. So a two-legged correction back into that zone of interest, that's the hot spot. That's where a lot of traders are going to be looking to start picking back up and trying to kick it higher, especially if they can get that done before the news. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go into the inventories. Down here is a great spot to be for buyers trying to pick it up. Anyway, before we get into the crude oil charts, let's start off on the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ, so far, in terms of the overall movement, we had that gigantic dive to the downside, and then nothing. Just nothing happened after that. Everything fell asleep. It all went to bed. So with the kind of, nothingness that took place here, we had that ginormous slide to the downside, and maybe we just need to go into today, and then we'll get another big leg up or down. But man, that thing just went to bed. And with that amount of sideways consolidation, slow, gross nastiness, all bets are off, right? Nobody's expecting anything anymore. Initially, sellers would have been expecting a secondary leg down. Even over here, I think it's fair that sellers would have been expecting a second leg down. And here it failed, and here it failed again, and now we're starting to rotate higher. There's a lot of failures from the sellers that's going to make it really tough. If we're looking at this from a sequence side of things from the bottom, we did have a rotation off of the L5 before that kick higher. The kick higher was an L1. They rotated into another L1 before the larger L2 pullback. That L2 pullback, it took ages for this stupid thing to turn around, but they finally got the L2 pullback, missed the highs. The front run targets were hit, to be fair. They pulled back again, retesting the L2, finally blew off through the top. Now, with this blow off through the highs, the next pullback was an L1. We're back off to the races, right? With L1, 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 L2, L1. Okay, here we go again. The market's racing to the upside, but now we have a new fresh starting point. We can either continue the drawing from the bottom, or given the fact that they did get that final little dip down there, we can kind of start from here. So we can approach this from two different ways. The much wider perspective, I guess if you look back further, you can go even farther out. You can go kind of really short term, medium term, long term. There's a lot of different ways to kind of skin this one. If we go a little bit closer, though, and look at this fresh start point, I just want to see how did they operate off of this. That was an L3. The next pullback after that L3 was an L1. We had that weekend gap, which gave it a funky little move to the upside, but that was another L1 pullback before rallying back up. What makes better sense than an L1, 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 L2? Right? We just saw it happen, and look at where all of this support is coming on. So it's no surprise that we're seeing some support being demonstrated here. But to be fair, I don't think anybody was expecting that to stop dead in its tracks. In typical NASDAQ fashion, it did stop, but it didn't V-bottom. And that's where things kind of broke apart and got a little bit weird. Usually the market V-bottoms or V-tops. This time, it tried, and then it just fell on its face. That could be the sellers trying to gain continuation. That could just be buyers so aggressively holding that L2 that they're not even letting it come back anymore. We can see we are definitely on a little bit of a teeter-totter here. Not a whole lot if it starts breaking down, too. We've got a wide open space down here that's going to be tough. Over on the S&P, it's a very similar situation. The one caveat that we have here is that this did not trigger a new low, so we don't have a fresh start point. We've got to go backward a little bit and start from this major low over here. That did give us an L4 rotation before breaking higher into an L1. That broke up again into a deeper L2. That was that multi-test. Same thing here on the S&P. They got the L2 multi-test, pop back up to a new high. We've got our L1, but on the S&P, notice, quick little pullback, but it went all the way back down to another L2. So we have an L2, and then a new high, and a quick little L2. Seems like the S&P is favoring those L2s a little bit more than the L1s, but we do have an L1 supportive bounce. Bounces again. We've got another L1. And now we are trying to hold the L1 that is failing. I mean, it's pretty obvious what we should be looking for here, right? I don't think we even really need to talk about it that much. L2, right there. Look at the support that's there. Just from a structural perspective, let alone the cyclical perspective. Everything is stacking up. Now, from a little bit of a wider stance here, we do have this really big drive to the downside. We do know that this move down was a doubling down, but they didn't quite complete that objective. They may want to take that A to B, not equaling C to D, but equaling E to F. And if we look where that lands, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. This is nuts. Everything stacks up on top of the L2. I mean, it could look the most bearish thing in the world when it's coming down to the L2, but we've got to be pretty quick to shift gears if it starts showing or demonstrating some support there. And if it doesn't, that's also a pretty big clue. Over on gold, oh man. Oh, poor gold. Poor gold just got slapped all the way to the downside. Big two-leg deep double deviation to the downside. Huge blow-off move. But if we're going a little bit further out and we zoom this back just a little, actually, it won't let me. I can't go that far back. Can I peek it on there? Just right there. That little low right down there on the left side. Then we've got this major low here. And this time around, this has responded a little bit differently. Now, one thing that you'll notice a lot of times when you're looking at this type of long-term low that's been setting up for a very, very long period of time, you'll see it bounce, 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 and then there'll be that poke down. And that's the definition of it, right? This is the proof. Are the sellers going to take it, or does this end up being a failure and it rotates back up? Right now, we're here. We're on this breakdown point. Sellers are going to be looking for this to churn with a lower high and break back down. So that's what we've got to kind of be paying attention to at the moment with this current market, because where did it bounce back above? If we draw a line across all of those lows, they popped way above all of them. Like, just left them in the dust. So with that type of reversal, that's a no-joke reversal. The sellers are going to have a heck of a time trying to get this to go back down again. The last time we saw something like that, look at the follow-through. I mean, it ended up being a bull flag and then another several long-term legs before it eventually rolled all the way back over. This could be creating a multi-day base that we might be stuck in for a while, but the higher low portion of that would be in the 55s to 56s. We'll see. As we creep this a little bit further forward and we look at the inside lows, notice where the market is holding. There's a reason for that. But there are a few problems too. We've got a higher high. Wait a minute. Now we've got a lower low. These are all micro. And the major ones, we've still got to break down either through a new low or at least creep back up through here. And that's still technically short term. It's really got to get above here. They got a lot of work to do yet. On crude, we already talked about crude a little bit, but this nice little two-legged correction back down going into inventories with an anticipated very bullish inventories makes a lot of sense. Realistically, a lot of buyers are going to be looking to buy at any pullback zone they can get their hands on. And if we're looking back at previous triple higher low structure, and that reversal off of, to the tick, I think it's pretty safe to say that if there were sellers, they exited a break even pretty aggressively. If it is going to pull back anywhere, what better spot than right there? Anywhere inside of here, really, that congestion zone. And that lines up almost perfectly with the -0.5. That's back inside of that previous structure. And if we're looking at this from the new low that created over here, we did have that kind of confusion L5 big pullback, break above. L5s usually get L2s. They had the L2 here, but notice what happened. They missed it by just a hair. So when they miss things like that, very frequently the market's going to want to come back and kind of refill that in. And that gives us another zone of interest. It's a little bit above it, but the bottom portion of the L2 lines up with that previous POC there. So everything is kind of looking at a deeper pullback still. Might not be done. Of course, we are hitting the L1, and L1 buyers are not afraid recently, so it might not pull back to L2, but it's there. The euro totally sideways, choppy, sloppy, not really a whole lot going on, but we do have some higher low maybe going on. Oh man, the wedge top, this thing's disgusting looking. Arguably, it might not even be there yet. This is kind of the wedge that we're dealing with at the moment, and even that, I mean, this thing still feels like it's really early to the party. The one big thing that does stand out from a cycle standpoint, at least, looking backward, remember the euro was on a very strong bullish tear to the upside. Really, really massive momentum to the highs. We start going a little bit sideways, pierces the highs. Now we're transitioning, and it's going a little bit sideways. I mean, realistically, if we zoom out just a little bit, is this nothing more than just a bigger pullback in a significantly larger trend? That's kind of the way that I'm looking at it, at least. Right now, it seems like we've got this bear trend kind of continuation stuff going on. And as long as this is in the way, we can't be buyers because the trend is still trying to go down. This bear trend is holding. So unless we start getting back above the moving average cluster, we start seeing this churn higher. We've got the first higher low. Maybe they're forming a second. They're starting to get some proof that they're creating a bottom here, but it's early. It's very early to the party. If we're looking backward at some previous zones of support that may be able to aid the buyers here, Looking back on that previous move, that gives us a POC right down there. And that would be a quick little fresh new low underneath that base. Man, that would be nice. And if we look at the more recent lows on a 3-press bottom, everything's stacking up real nice with that 1.21. Ooh, man, oh man. Still looking for potential longs on the euro. If we need a little bit more backup, though, we can go back to that larger swing and kind of see where do they plant their feet in on this one. Right down there. So if it does want to dip a little bit lower, then it doesn't make sense to hold on because we're probably going to get a dive down through the -2, -2.5. So if buyers are going to be buying underneath this low at this -1 DP, this orange line, it's got to hold. And there's not going to be a lot of space to give it before it starts failing and potentially looking for a much larger move down. Basically what that means is if you're going to try to buy against this trend, don't hold the bag. That bag might get real heavy. Over on Bitcoin, we've got a nice little flush to the downside out of this consolidation. The one thing to be noted here, that little poke above the highs, that doesn't give me the warm fuzzies. Seeing that poke above the highs and now seeing it dive back down, I distinctly remember that happening before. I might not be able to actually go back far enough. That was right before that big dive to the downside. We saw that kind of vindictive, shizy stuff up on the top like that. That makes me really nervous. The one thing that we do have going for it is that we haven't technically hit an objective of like a measured move. So from a completionary standpoint, it's not there yet. That doesn't happen until 43,000. And as we know, 43,000 is also a structural break. So what is realistically happening are sellers that don't want a bull trend to take place are holding it down to try to keep it away from this. They do not want 43,000 because if it hits 43,000, even if it dives back to 20, the trend potential for it to reverse right back up again becomes extremely high. So the buyers do not want, the sellers do not want 43,000 to hit because that invalidates everything that they've been trying to do. From the bulls' perspective, they need that to invalidate so that they can get the sellers the heck out of their way. So we still got a little bit of work to do, and seeing this churn back down again doesn't give me the warm fuzzies. That might mean that we get that dive back down to retest 30. Still anticipating higher low, but we'll see. Over on Ethereum, same thing. I mean, we're diving down a little bit further. Very obvious from a shorter term structural perspective. On the 15-minute, we've got a lot of support on the -1.5 DP sitting at around 23.25. They did break that previous high. So structurally, we know what's up. Even if it goes all the way down here, buyers have the edge. Might not feel like it right now, but... All right, starting off the NASDAQ on the daily and kind of keeping an eye on what's going on here. Really? Can I please double click that? Thank you. We still have not completed that objective to the upside, but yesterday was a very bearish day off of the top. When we have those all-time highs and they transition into a bearish day, let's look backward, right? We can utilize history to give us an idea of what to expect. We have a very strong bear day, but the bear day does not trigger. That led into a strong bull day, but that bull day was garbage and ended up going sideways for the better part of 2 weeks. Okay. Clue number one. Let's go back a little bit further. Very strong bear bar off of the top. This is a bear engulfing candle, and that led into about a month of downside. Just a casual 12.2% drop off the top. Okay. Let's look before that. Remember, these are all-time highs at the time. So if we go back, all-time highs at the time, that is not a strong bear bar. I'm not going to count that as part of this. We have another really strong bear bar, but notice the all-time highs weren't quite there yet. That doesn't count. We've got to go back a little bit further. That one's not off the all-time highs. We've got to go back a little further. At the time, was that all-time? Yep. That was all-time highs. Giant bear engulfing candle, although it closed very weak, it did not trigger. And as we've seen before, when it doesn't trigger, it usually leads into about 2 weeks of sideways. So, I mean, we're seeing it again. It's there again. Now, looking at a little bit further back, We have an incredibly strong bear bar off the all-time highs. Triggered in, bull bar was the follow-through, ended up going back up, reversal back to the highs. This didn't technically go into that sideways for 2 weeks, but it did go back up to the highs, which does seem to be a common trend with all of those really weak bear bars. It tends to go back up to the top. Another incredibly strong bear bar. Is that all-time highs? No, it's not. Okay. I was going to say, geez, OP. The last time we had a big dive off, that was not off of the highs. Another bear bar off the top. So one thing that seems like a very obvious observation that we can make whenever there is a strong bear bar off of the top, the follow-through tends to suck, doesn't it? I think that's pretty fair to say. Every single time there's been a strong bear bar off the top since, I mean, what year are we in right now? 2020? Since the low. There's been no follow-through whatsoever. And if that big, strong bear bar happens below the highs, there tends to be some strong follow-through. The only time that there was follow-through was right there. That's one time out of how many examples that we looked at? So my first inclination today is bullishness. I am not going to believe today in the way that it breaks down. And even over here, look how long it took the sellers given that strong bear day. They know what's up. They're not stupid. They're going to buy into it because they're not expecting it to work. Weak bear day, closes weak. Bulls buy again, right? Weak bear day, closes weak. Strong bear day, uh-oh. This is doing something it was not doing before. It all dumps. So if this is going to dump, we're going to see this take a little time, usually. It's not just going to hammer off of the top, off of this one bear bar. It's going to take a little bit of time. So I'm anticipating today to be slightly sideways to bullish. And if we can get below yesterday's low, that's usually where the majority of that bullishness takes place. But we have to be careful because a lot of those pierces underneath those bear lows are not small. Right? It may look small, but that dive to the downside from that low to there is 0.3%. From a scalper's perspective, that's an account buster if you're on the wrong side of that, right? So we've got to be very patient in making sure that we are content in where the low potentially is. But the anticipation for today is bullish. The anticipation for the rest of the week, based on what we've seen, is bullish. But we've got FOMC, we've got non-farms, or not non-farm, quad witching week. We know how this week can go. On the 60-minute chart, we've got that giant dive to the downside off the top, and then nothing. Absolutely nothing happened. The last time we saw that kind of consolidation after a big move, it really didn't last very long. It was right there. That dive down, went sideways, and then just a total reversal all the way back up. And if it does go sideways and doesn't reverse up, it stays sideways for days. This thing's nasty. But, I mean, look at what's going on. Noting previously what's been happening and kind of taking note of the bullish intent that we're coming into today with. This trapping underneath the base, I mean, you can definitely see why buyers would want to take this. But at the same time, why this might be a phenomenal trap for sellers to just obliterate it down to the lows, get that 0.3% drop, and then reverse it. Right? So this is touchy ground. Buyers will buy here, but they're not going to have big stops. Plus, we still have to get above that POC, even if we're looking in the near term, which we might be able to see a bit more definition of on the 15. Oh, God. Ooh, lordy, that thing is just lovely. This drive to the downside, first off, the impulse POC is back at 14,062. From the top, beyond the impulse to the higher low, we have a POC that's down at the lows. I don't think that is much of a surprise, but we know what's up. Buyers are trying to get it going. They're not going to be able to get it going unless they can crack above 62 and hold it. That's what we've got to see now. Looking at the Asian to Euro session movement, or lack thereof, they are basically stacked, although technically speaking, bullish. From the lows of the Asian to the lows of the Euro, it does go up by a little. All right, we've got the open right around the corner here. 9:28 is the next big chunk of news, next big batch of movement that usually takes place. Be careful. The market is very obviously sideways. I don't even think there's really much of a cycle. I mean, what they try to do, like go down, made barely a new leg, went into the overnight, bull cycle up, I'm sure somewhere inside that disgustingness in there. A leg to the upside, bear cycle, break, several legs down. Tried getting a bull leg up, failed down, and then reversed all the way back up. Oh, man. Well, I think it's pretty safe to say what's going to happen up here. We've got a lot of buyers taking profit. I don't want to be a buyer up here, that's for sure. Based on that 60-minute, though, it might not give us much of a choice. At the moment, the S&P is back inside gap up. Let's see what kind of fun stuff we can find today. Looking at yesterday's congestion, seeing an inside gap up, I don't think it's going to surprise anybody. It's like, oh, okay, we're still here. Cool. Nothing's changed, you know. That's not going to rattle the cage at all. One minute until the open right around the corner. Ooh. Crude. Crude. You're starting to get that pullback. It's starting to get real interesting down here in these L1s. I have to keep an eye on this. But we've got the open around the corner here. Let's see what this wants to do. This would be a second short off of the top of a range. It's right into the open. I'm sure some sellers will still take it, but yikes, as far as timing goes. Much more interesting point that I would like to see here is for the market to dip down and re-challenge this pocket of wicks back in the 42s, or even down a little bit lower in the 39s. From a favorability standpoint, I think it makes a lot more sense. Like down here. Nice little flush back down. Beautiful pop. And there's the scalpers. Wow, that actually is a lot smaller than I thought it was. I hit ask because it jumped up really quick. And I thought that was a nice little scalp, but I might have to... How many ticks was that? Oh, it was not. Okay. It was a scalp. Okay. It's just, I felt like when I hit it, I thought I saw like 5 or something. I'm like, wait, what? Well, I was only able to grab one, and inside the confusion there, I dropped that one at a scalp. But nice little scalp point on that pullback. Bulls still continuing to the rally on the upside. Little snap down here, sub... Ooh, well... I was going to say sub 55s for a pop back up again, but there it went. It was too quick. Definitely dealing with some open volatility here. Looking at the S&P so far, we've got an inside gap to the highs, more so on the upper third or so on that range. And if we're looking at the pocket of wicks that formed up there, so far to the tick off 4150. From a cycle standpoint, we do have a fresh low, although that's, I mean, it's really awkward because all it's had is like an L1. But we've got an L1 into an L1 into another L1, almost an L2. Looking for an L2 next. Decent amount of bearishness coming in on the S&P. I mean, again, I don't think that's much of a surprise. Continuation pop further up on the NASDAQ. Still waiting to see if they want to get an L2 at some point inside there. The S&P is almost back to settlement. 37 quarter. Settlement filled. To the tick so far. It'd be nice if it went through it just a little bit. L2 still a little further down there. This is likely just visually or eyeballing it. We're around an L1. But I'm a little less interested in those L1s at the moment. And that rejection on the S&P, holy crap. Starting to chop through settlement now. Now remember where this is, right? This is at the bottom on the S&P, at the bottom of that range that the day finished off on yesterday. And nothing has really changed from yesterday's range. So as it starts nearing down here, the same thing as far as resistance would be as support down here. And you might even have a secondary one a little bit further. So you've got a little bit of a hot spot in here. Ooh, hey, NASDAQ. Nice little L2 snapback, retest. Beautiful pop right back up. Jeez, like to the tick. Beautiful snap off of that. See if we can get a little bit of extra back and forth going on. What's this POC look like on this pullback? Still pretty top weighted, kind of gross looking. First bounce off of that L2, successful on the scalper's perspective. Retesting again, volume building up, the POC pretty sharp up there at the 63.75s. As far as the S&P goes, on that overlap, I like that zone, 33 quarter. It's only for scalps. I mean, it's not really worth much else, but... From a swing perspective, NASDAQ buyers, although I was only able to get one again, his upside objectives back to retest that POC would make some sense. They haven't shifted it yet. Wow, that was a big volume jump. This higher low retest for bulls to snap into this makes a lot of sense for a pop back up again. Beautiful pop higher. Well, maybe. Hello? Where'd everyone go? There it is. Another nice bull bar back up again. They still haven't shifted the POC. Man, I thought they were going to do it there. That's why I jumped ship so quick. They didn't shift it. I thought that was going to be enough to get the job done, but 63.75 is still resistance. Oh, gross. Not shifted down, 62. First candle on the S&P as far as what it's done. I mean, really, has it done much? I don't think it has. This feels like this is nothing more than just continuity of what happened yesterday. Honestly, if anything, this adds to bullish context from yesterday. We've got the third higher low, and it didn't change after an entire overnight session. So that seems pretty bullish to me. You know, I would still much rather be on the bull side. Wow. Okay. NASDAQ attempted to get above 62. Wow. Maybe not. Oy, what a bear bar. All right, let's see if we can get a little bit of a transition of power. Obviously, sellers are pressuring back off of those 62s. They're going to be trying to get a second leg down. That second leg down is right to the bottom of that L2. So far, the bears just held the POC. Yikes. Come on, you bad mamma jamma. Let's get down there. We've got some support to hit. POC did hold. Woo! Big dumpster all the way down to the lows of that pop. I was a little bit early on that move. So I'm going to take the target there and see if I can get a better entry price. There we go. Quick flush out. I'm going to reduce the one at a slight loss just to ensure There we go. I'm going to take the second one off there. That ended up being a little bit more break even. That slid further than I was really comfortable holding on from a scalper's perspective. I wanted that to slide down, hit that, and then bounce right back up. This is a major completion. I guess this is an L2. Everybody should be doing everything at the same place, which is buying. And that's not what happened. It did for a second, but I'm going to have to wait for a bit of extra proof now. We've got the L2, but it is not clean. Got to see these sellers fail. Okay, this big bull bar back up is definitely going to help them out. The question is this pop higher a break-even attempt? Because that POC is still looming up there at 62. Holy moly. V-bottom, take me away. Jeez, oh Pete. It's good old NASDAQ, right? Seriously. We do have the first 5-minute bar in. Let's take a look at what this first 5 POC looks like. Although I think we kind of have an idea of what it looks like already. Yep. 61 is that POC. And on the S&P, $39.50. Okay, now we do have a POC shift, and the buyers are trying to crack back above it. It's a really good sign. There's no separation yet, and these candles look like absolute garbage right now. But they're trying, right? We're back above it. Buyers will start buying if we start separating away here. $14.061 5-minute POC test and holding makes it a little bit difficult. Maybe we need one more good bear trap. The problem is if they form a bear bar here, that would be a third lower high, and that could cause some problems. POC shifted again. Okay. Crap. Ooh, big pop above. I'm looking for a continuation on that. I don't think any seller in their right mind is going to stay with that one. Nope. Holy crap. Yeah, big back flush too. Nice little flush back down for those sellers who felt like they were stuck to get out. I didn't get a fill up there on the 67s. I'm going to see if I can get a couple extra down here on this retest. They keep giving me weird asks on these hits. Nice little snap back down. Again, I'm just playing this area as a scalper zone of interest. We've got a ton of volatility here. A little flush underneath that last bull bar. Oh, they're not going to give me a chance though, are they? Nope, they're not going to give me a chance. There we go. Nice little pop on those lows. I'm going to look to utilize this as an opportunity to drive my average down for a potential exit. All they're giving me is break-even bounces. They're not really giving me much more than that. One tick. Okay. One tick past break-even. All right, I'm just going to jump ship. They slid back underneath the people. You rotten SOB. Man alive, I hate quad witching. God. Ay. And the S&P hasn't done a thing. All right. I'll give it a second to get out of here. This is a nasty zone. I'm not going to get tied up in this. We're just scalping this area, and it's not really giving us much of an opportunity to do much else, but man, is this thing vindictive. Of course. A little extra salt in the wound. Good continuation back to the upside. I thought for sure that thing was going to rifle through the top as soon as that happened. That little pullback, whoo, man. Market had other intentions, though. Nice bullish continuation back to the highs, but here we stand back inside a range again. The 60-minute chart on the NASDAQ looks incredibly bullish, so we are still gauging that follow-through on what we were seeing from that perspective, but that's about it. Now, a lot of aggressive scalpers might have been sitting on the sidelines for the majority of the morning. And this is where they start getting aggressive, but it's a little bit too late, right? It's too little too late. A lot of these aggressive entries buying below these brick bottom bull bars and these aren't going to work as clean as they were before. You know, as an example, if you look backward, really strong bear bar after a strong rally up, quick bounce. Strong bear thrust to the downside, quick bounce. Bear trigger, quick bounce. Bear trigger, right? It bounces back up relatively quickly. When you have this type of movement, after it's been going on for so long, a lot of times it doesn't make sense to necessarily be a buyer directly under the closest thing available. It might make a little bit more sense to offset and look for a bit lower. We've already had the L2, although it did it in a very disgusting way. They're going to be either looking for an L1 continuation to keep the trend alive, or a deeper pullback where we start kind of losing steam a bit. Let's see what they want to do. More so looking at the L1 or like an L4, L5. What? Okay, cool. I didn't want to trade that. That's all good. Thanks, NASDAQ. What? I'm going to head off to the snot fair with my son. Jeez. Okay. Well, let's see if we can get a quick little L1, a little L1 pullback again. What a vindictive thing this is. Hang on a minute. I feel like out of all the days, today is suited for some face melters. Let's get the Spotify playlist going. I know you guys can't hear it, but I don't think, can you? No, okay. Bulls trying to hold back above the 6850s. Very congested area and looking a little bit like a spike and channel type formation going on here. Bulls are trying to keep the dream alive. They're doing it. Little by little. Feels like it's leaking in the EP pit. Yeah. Honestly, that's a really good way to kind of put it with these types of moves where it's just like, hello? I like this low side, but the fact that the bulls have been rallying higher and the S&P hasn't gone with it in the rejection on the top, I mean, I still like this area as a scalper's zone of interest, but if they start losing their grip down here and they can't get this to cycle back up, we might be looking for that deeper leg down. I mean, yesterday's bar was the top. That did end up being the tie of the day. It only happens one out of 5 times, 20% of the time-ish. So maybe only once a week. That's not weak. Buyers still holding the L1s on the NASDAQ. Wow. I gotta get these. I know that's the overlap zone right there. That's what I'll leave on. But notably, I'm gonna offset. The one thing that's standing out on the S&P that is hard to ignore, even after the gap and after a new day, now that we've got bar 3, we've got a little bit more information. Lower high, lower high, lower high. Now we have a lower high again. Although it's not technically a swing, I don't like counting those as swings. That makes it really hard, considering when we look backward, lower low, lower low. I mean, I got to expect it to go lower low, right? Bull's still trying to creep this thing back to the upside on the NASDAQ. Just be careful up here. Don't get stuck holding the bag. When this pulls back, and I promise you it will at some point. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. I don't know if you guys watch The Simpsons at all. The very next day. Anyway, so this is one of those things where it will pull back eventually, and you do not want to get stuck holding the bag, because when it pulls back, we know what the pullbacks on these markets look like. It's not L1 and L2, and then it goes L3, and then it goes just meandering its way back up, all happy and easy peasy. No, it goes L1, L2 if you're lucky, and then L5. Like just V bottom, V top all over the place. Don't get stuck holding a bag way up at the top today. Especially not this week, quad witching week. Oh, man. Look at the 15-minute. Oh, for sure. And that's what's making me, along with everything else, there's a lot of red flags. I mean, this is still a range. I've got to give it that. So I'm still anticipating a bottom buy for at least a scalper's bounce. But that's why, like, if this starts failing through, it's going to have to just hit it and get out. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's if you look at the... Hang on real quick. I tried to make it easier for news announcements for today, although it's not an interactive thing, which is kind of a bummer. The interactive calendar just did not want to mesh well with the site. But if you go into the morning brief, there's a picture that I take every morning of the major news announcements. Medium and large. Right there is the problem for today. Not to mention it's quad witching week. Not to mention the millions of other things that are going on right now. You know, it's tough. But man, they just keep holding those L1s, don't they? Wow. All right, well, we have to, I mean, it doesn't matter what my opinion is. We have this L3 test, which was to the tick on the open. That shows indecision, confusion, not sure what we want to do. After the L3, we rotate up to a new high, and after that confusion, we are led into with a to the tick L1. I'm pretty sure that confusion is no longer. We don't have confusion anymore. This confusion's off the table. So from that perspective, we are back on track with an L1 trend. And side note, look at the 60-minute chart right now. 60-minute chart on the NASDAQ is no joke. Lordy. All right, this area right now, right here on the NASDAQ, massive zone of concern. I know that goes against everything that I've been just saying. I like to keep you on your toes. Massive zone of concern. Why is this a zone of concern? For you DTA folks out there, you Day Trading Academy guys, you know what I'm talking about. Right out of the textbook. This is a huge red flag spot. Big nasty right here. The buyers had their shot on L1. They showed up off of L1, got dumpstered. Bottom of L2, they showed up, got dumpstered. I'm sorry, at the bottom of L1. Top of L2, they showed up, they're holding. Where are we now? This spot is dangerous. Now remember, this, when I say spot, is a zone. Realistically, it's all the way up here. This whole area up here. If it breaks the high, the bulls have it again. That's a lot of work that they're going to have to do. I think it's fair to say that in the short term, the bulls have it as well, but this could easily be overextension parabolic top. One other concern, I don't know where it is. Let's go back on just the impulse drive. Oh no. Did it have to be there? Okay, what about just the low? I'm trying to make sure that I only have the candles that I need. That's terrible. We got the POC right in the middle, 14.062. That's gross. All right. This is a nasty spot. Real nasty spot. Does not mean the bulls can't take it. They certainly can, but boy, oh boy, we got to be careful. Almost another L1, but they didn't hit it. Maybe a two-legged correction back might be kind of nice. Back to the short-term middle-weighted POC. Buyers buying too aggressively. What a shock. They're buying high and it didn't work. Oh. Now they're exiting at break even. Ooh, bull engulfing candle. These bulls are relentless. Just. Oh, well, hold up. Hang on now. Don't be too quick. Oh, no. Oh, no. That's terrible. Uh-oh. How many buyers do you think bought that bull engulfing bar that are thinking, oh, crap. If you're nimble, that offers up a possible short on their break-evens, but I don't think that bulls right now are going to feel too scared to hold on through a bullback. Hashtag just saying. Got about 5 minutes until the top of the hour. That's when we transition over. 10 o'clock does also have some news. Ooh, bull engulfing bar again. Back above the POC. This is a really strong attempt from the bulls. They might not even allow a pullback. Nope. There's no way I could get in. Okay. Well, with 4 minutes until the end of the morning part, feel free to get those questions in. I'm going to grab a drink real quick. I'll be right back, and then we'll hit some training time, and then transition over to the extended session. All right, we're back. A little bit of a pullback again, with the modification to the new high. Almost at the L1. Now they're back to the L1. Ooh, starting to chop through a little bit here. Okay. POC's right up at the top. That's nerve-wracking. I mean, the S&P has been nothing but just kind of continuity from yesterday. Nothing's changed. This is a strong... Oh, well, I was going to say, this is a strong enough leg that will likely have a secondary portion to it. POC just shifted down to 74.50. Wow, that popped right back above that POC. Okay. 74.50 right down at the bottom. Buyers slammed it right where? At the low. Buyers bought the previous swing and they weren't shy about it. At all. See if we can get a little bit of a slide underneath this previous bull bar back to that 74.50. Guess not. A snap down to the lows of this bull bar is totally fine as well. If it closes at the top like it is. Well, not anymore. All right, 10 o'clock. I'm not seeing any questions coming in. So that is going to do it for the morning side. No pullback at all, man. All right. Well, from the YouTube perspective, the extended session, we're going to be transitioning over to that on the morning session. Though I hope you had a great morning of trading so far. What a I mean, it's been an okay day. Don't get me wrong, but man, it's been vindictive. This is a hair ripper for sure. But hopefully you had a great day. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow morning and rest up and get ready and all that fun stuff, and we'll be ready to rock and roll. Remember, FOMC later today. Be careful. This week is quad witching on top of everything else. It's a tough one. But enjoy. I hope you had a great day of trading, and we'll see all of you tomorrow morning. For the rest of you, the extended session, you can find that link in the communities page. Any VIPs, just hang out and listen to me babble to myself for a second, all right? So for the rest of you, we'll talk to y'all later, all right? Have a good one. Thanks.